Hey everybody, happy Friday. Alan Weber from the Mayor's Office. Thanks for joining me today. I'm going to start with COVID because that's the news we all need to be mindful of. The governor had another very, very somber press briefing yesterday in which she said the COVID numbers are out of control, community spread is everywhere. I had a meeting with several of our local hospital leaders, three of our public health leaders, and the numbers are very serious. The situation is serious. We have a positivity rate that is very high when you're tested. We have a lot of people who are positive and not staying home. We have a lot of people who don't want to get tested because they don't want to know if the news is bad. That's part of what the spread is about. So please get tested. If you're feeling sick, stay home. If you need help, ask for help. We have resources, and I'll get to that in a minute. But first, remember that numbers like 53 new cases a day, and we're up to 18 deaths in Santa Fe County. These are serious numbers, and the governor has told us with no ambiguity that if we are unable as a community to begin to bend the curve of COVID, there will inevitably be another lockdown, as we've seen in other parts of the United States and in other parts of the world. And then that takes a huge toll on our workforce, on people's paychecks. We all can do it. There is a way to bend the curve. Wear a mask, wash your hands, stay home if you can. When you go out, practice social distancing. When you come home, use hand sanitizer. These are simple rules. Don't be in an enclosed space with other people. Don't get too close to other people. Mind the 6-foot rule. 6 feet for 3 minutes. That's pretty much what we have to be mindful of. What our health experts told me yesterday was something that's in the Santa Fe Promise, and that is act as if you have COVID-19. If you knew you had it, what would you do differently? You'd stay home, you'd wear a mask, you'd wash your hands, you'd stay at a distance from the people you love the most, and you'd be very cautious about being around others. Those are the rules we need to practice. Right now, according to our hospital leaders, we have beds, but we all need to be aware of the fact that our doctors and nurses are now getting infected. So even if we have beds, we don't necessarily have the essential workers to take care of people in those beds. So please, let's be special careful. Let's be mindful of the health of our family and our friends. Let's be very, very cautious in the next week or so. There was a prediction from people at Christus that next week we'll see a spike even higher than this last week. We can't afford that. We've got to be very, very careful. If you feel the symptoms, get a test, stay home until you get the results. If you are sick, don't go to work. Ask for help from our community services team. We can help you. There is money, there are resources. We've got to bend the curve of COVID-19. Now, also download the Novid app, N-O-V-I-D. It's a free app. It is anonymous, and it'll tell you if you're in the neighborhood or the vicinity of somebody who is tested positive. About resources. I just got an update today from Kira Ochoa, our Director of Community Services, about how we're getting COVID-19 CARES Act money out into our community. That's what the city and the county are doing. In addition to trying to bend the curve, we know people need help. As of today, Community Services has put $3,365,000 out into the community through our Connect network. That includes $1.6 million for the so-called Family Independence Initiative, or FII, which provides direct cash relief for anyone who's ineligible for unemployment or whose workplace may have been shut down because of COVID or who is facing eviction. There's an additional $234,000 that's in process for community partners like La Familia, Santa Fe Veterans Alliance, the New Mexico Immigrant Law Center, Girls Inc., Kitchen Angels, and other agencies who are working with us to meet the needs in the community. Those are groups like LifeLink, Esperanza, Youth Shelters, Adelante, YouthWorks, Food Depot, Earth Care, Many Mothers, the Recovery Center, Gerard's House, Girls Inc., Santa Fe Indian Center. All of those groups are agencies that the CARES Act money is going so they can help people who need help. In addition, we've committed $500,000 of our CARES money to provide vouchers for families that need child care. Families can access child care vouchers through licensed or accredited daycare, preschool, schools, or other child care centers. Just tell your provider you're interested to see if they're participating in the voucher program. If anyone needs help, go to www.santafenm.gov/connect. The Connect program is the front door for getting help, or call 995-9525. As of today, $3.3 million is out through these agencies to help people in our community. We're going to continue to do that from now until the end of December. But if you need help, ask for help. That's a little bit on COVID. Let's talk about where we are in the aftermath 3 weeks ago of the Obelisk being toppled and the shock to our system, to our community, the sense of outrage and anger, disappointment that people had broken the law and taken matters into their own hands and prevented the kind of community dialogue that we wanted in order to talk about healing and reconciliation. As of today, 2 arrests have been made for people who resisted the police, jumped on the backs of our police officers. Our police were bit, spit on, pushed, pummeled. Those arrests stand. In addition, 2 people have been charged with being instrumental in toppling the Obelisk, and the police are working on additional charges for additional people. If you have information, please come forward. If you're one of the people who helped topple the Obelisk, now is the time to acknowledge it and come forward. If you'd like to help the police, help the city, help pursue an end of justice in this case, there is a Crime Stopper reward that is available. In the meantime, the police will continue to look at video and still photographs and continue to bring charges against people who really broke the law. This is not about how you feel about the Obelisk. It's not even how you feel about racial and social justice in America today. There are very strong feelings on both sides about racial justice, on all sides about racial justice, and who was harmed in New Mexico. That's a debate that's been raging for hundreds of years. It needs to be taken out into the public and have a dialogue about how we feel as a community about our history. But the fact is that breaking the law is breaking the law. It is taking matters into your own hands. I sent an email to someone this week who said, Mr. Mayor, you're on the wrong side of history when you're trying to bring people to justice. And I said, I believe I'm on the right side of history when it comes to social justice, but social justice and bringing people in front of a judge for breaking the law are 2 different matters. If the lawbreakers were like Dr. King in Alabama, doing civil disobedience, doing a sit-in at a lunch counter, I would be with them. If they take ropes and tear down an obelisk in the middle of our plaza and then run in an attempt to escape justice, I think they need to be held accountable. So we can be for social justice and also be in favor of bringing people to justice as they break the law. Part of the social justice piece is a proposal that is in front of the City Council right now to create a committee called the CHART Committee: Culture, History, Art, Reconciliation, and Truth. It was something I was working on all summer long. to get a configuration that would make sense. And we're seeing now with the City Council what a sensitive issue it really is. There are council members who believe that the proposal that I had for 21 individuals representing Hispanic and Native American civic groups, historians, former elected officials, people from the arts community, a young person, people from all walks of life. There are people who feel 21 is too many. That may be the case, but if you only have 8 or 9, you may have too few. There are people who believe that the 2-year proposal I put in my resolution for the length of this committee, recognizing that some of the work could be done sooner, others more slowly. Some people believe 2 years is too slow, and 1 year is a better number. Well, I'm open to all of these recommendations, understanding that we have to be urgent, we have to be active, but we also have to be aware that hard problems take time to work on. And this is a problem, this is an issue that goes back, as I said, for hundreds and hundreds of years as to how people feel about the many different experiences, histories, diverse groups in our community. There are some folks who argue that the makeup of this body ought to be based on the demography of Santa Fe and northern New Mexico. There are others who believe it ought to be very much at the behest of the members of the City Council, where they would get to choose people. All of this points out just how hard it is and how complicated this issue is, why it takes a lot of discussion and a lot of work to try to do something that will have confidence in the community as we move forward. I am absolutely sure that this is the right time to have this conversation. It's going on all over America. There's even a large nonprofit foundation, the Mellon Foundation, that has put up a substantial amount of money for cities that are trying to come to terms across America with what to do with statues and monuments and remembrances. There are groups all over the country in cities as large as Los Angeles and New Orleans, where they're trying to structure community dialogues rather than have this turn into a them versus us situation. Santa Fe's never been a them versus us community. We've always been a community where we look to respect and listen to each other. That's what the Chart Committee is about. So if you're interested, there is a draft resolution on the city's website. I believe it will be discussed Monday night at a subcommittee or a meeting of one of our standing committees, the Public Works, Public Utilities Committee. There will be amendments offered to suggest different ways to configure it. And as you listen in, don't only think about what you personally like or don't like. Listen in to what a complex issue this really is. This is an issue that touches everybody in our community and where everybody's voice needs to be respected and listened to. There's not one right way to do this, but whatever we come up with, you have to believe in, you have to trust, you have to believe that the work of this Chart Committee will be fair, transparent, open, accessible, and will lead us toward better conversations and better outcomes and guidelines on community outreach, deep listening, guidelines for works of art and statues, and then potentially even a resolution about how we tell our stories about our history, about who we are, about how we feel about this land and the way in which the past informs our future. So please listen in. Don't think of it as winning and losing. Think of it as coming together. Think of it as how we rejoin hands for a process to heal. I want to talk 1 minute about housing because there was a big article in the newspaper this week about affordable housing and where we stand for in housing across Santa Fe. I don't know if these charts are going to be really easy for you to read on this webcast, but let's check it out. This is a chart that shows housing units per year. as they've been permitted through our land use department. And you will see that over time, well, there was a period of time where we were building and then up, down, 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 and now in the last 2 years, this is where we've gone. We've been on a steady climb going up. This is 3 years ago, last year, and now this year, we're almost at 1,000 new units this year alone. So we are building more housing. You can look at another chart that tries to make the point. I'll give me 1 minute to fold it. Maybe you'll see it a little bit better. This is construction permits and revenue. The number of units last year, of permits issued, and this year to date. There are 2 more months this year, so it's going to go up. We've had a total valuation of permits this year already where the valuation is larger than last year, despite 2 more months to go, and total revenue generated for the city, significant revenue generated, even though we're in COVID-19 days and all of these permits are being issued electronically. And here again you see single-family and multifamily housing starts year over year. And you can see the steady climb that we're on to try to meet the housing demands in Santa Fe. When I became mayor, we were roughly 4,000 to 5,000 housing units short because there hadn't been enough dwelling units built. Between last year and this year, we've cut that number roughly in half. The demand continues to grow, but right now the supply is growing thanks to our builders, thanks to our construction industry, thanks to our workers, and thanks to the land use department for making the permits and the inspections go forward. We're also making progress with our homeless issue. It's really something that has happened over the last 2 years. We joined the Built for Zero movement to drive veteran homelessness and chronic homelessness to functional zero. We're on our way toward making progress on that, having stood up the Midtown campus for a shelter, thinned out the numbers at St. E's and the Interfaith Shelter, put people into hotels, motels, and now we're on the cusp of being able to perhaps help finance the purchase of a motel for long-term housing. 60% of those units would be affordable. 40% roughly would be for people who are getting out of being homeless. So another big step in the right direction. There's more to be done, but in the last 2 years, we've reformed the accessory dwelling unit ordinance. We've changed the fee in lieu of structure to get more money for our affordable housing trust fund. We are in the process of amending our short-term rental ordinance to protect neighborhoods and make sure that our rules are followed. On down the line, a major effort for housing in Santa Fe has been underway for the last 2.5 years. One last thing. We're all sitting, if you're like me, we're all sitting watching television, monitoring the internet, looking at websites, wondering what will happen with the national election. Our elections went off flawlessly, and we should give a major thank you to everyone who ran those elections, the many volunteers who took the process that was set up and made it work. I can tell you the early voting over at the convention center was perfect in its execution. The volunteers could not have been more cordial, more friendly, better prepared, more welcoming, so that voting became something you were pleased and proud to participate in. Election night was flawless. Again, a lot of credit goes to our Secretary of State, our county clerk, doing an excellent job of making sure that people voted and the votes were counted. Now we're waiting to see what happens across the country. And I would simply say that the tone of voice that Vice President Biden is using Whether he's your candidate or not doesn't matter, but his tone of voice is right. Democracy can be messy. Things can take time. Stay patient. Don't get overly emotional. Don't get overly angry. Let's all be patient, thoughtful, considerate. Let's not turn this into any kind of a reason for negative demonstrations or anything on the street that we regret. Be peaceful, be accepting. Let's celebrate democracy by staying safe. It's very important that we set a standard here in Santa Fe and in northern New Mexico for how we conduct ourselves even under difficult circumstances. I go back to the Obelisk incident again. We had a summer with more than 20 demonstrations and marches and rallies, and they were all peaceful. There were people carrying signs, chanting, marching. There were Black Lives Matter people, and there were Cowboys for Trump, and everybody was peaceful until that incident on the plaza. Let's make sure that one incident is the last and only incident we have like that. Let's make sure that we stay peaceful and stay calm, that we accept the results of this election, and we deal with it in a way that respects the process. Equally important, respect each other. We are all in this together. We're very fortunate and blessed to live in Santa Fe, to have a community where people care about each other, that in the throes of a pandemic, people are taking an interest in everybody's well-being and wearing masks, washing hands, looking out for everybody's health. That's how we stay well. That's how we demonstrate Santa Fe together. So please have a safe weekend. Remember, weekends can be a time when you relax, but not where you relax your guard against COVID-19. Make sure you are wearing a mask. Make sure you are practicing social distancing. If you can avoid it, don't get into small, crowded spaces. Don't get too close to each other. Don't expose yourself or others you love to the COVID virus. If you think you've got it, you've got it. Act as if that were the case. If you think somebody in your family is infected, has the virus, get them tested. If you can find a way to quarantine, quarantine. We have got to begin to change the trajectory of this virus, or we will be ending up where the governor has said we will inevitably end up unless the numbers get better, and that is with more restrictions. So please, please do the right thing with COVID. Do the right thing in the election as we await results. Take care of each other. Take care of your families. Take care of yourself. Together, we will all take care of Santa Fe, and we're going to make it through this together. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. I'll see you next week.